Hello! Welcome. Here it is. Tuesday time, week 15. That is hard to believe. 15! Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? Let's get right into it. Our words of the week and the academic of the week are as follows. Faint, paradox, gloat, cacophony, bona fide, antithesis, ostentatious, I like that word a lot, furtive, cosmopolitan, and tirade. Now, the Kington High School academic word of the week was exclude, which means to leave something out. If something is excluded, you deliberately don't include it with everything else. You may have noticed there I said include. It's the opposite of exclude, all right? To include is to take it in, to exclude is to leave it out. So that's the academic word of the week. We will not be returning to it with its own slide. A feint. A feint is a deceptive or pretended blow, thrust, or other movement. Think about boxing or fencing, sword fighting. A feint is you kind of imagine, you fake it, like you're going to go in for a strike, but you don't really. You feint at them to kind of judge their reaction, right? Now, I have to be careful because there's another word, F-A-I-N-T, also pronounced feint, which means like to pass out, to lose consciousness. Often in like dramatic movies, people go, ooh, they'll feint, F-A-I-N-T, and pass out. So that's feint. A deceptive or pretended blow. Paradox. This is a fun one. It's a statement or a proposition or an idea that, despite sounding reasonable, it seems sound. It seems like a reasonable idea. It's apparently sound, reasoning from acceptable premises. The bottom line rule makes sense. However, when you follow out the reasoning, when you lay it all out, it leads to a conclusion that is senseless or logically unacceptable or self-contradictory. It can't be true by the rules of its own truth, all right? So you see the buttons here. The blue button is true, but the blue button says the red button is false. Okay, but if the red button's false, that means what it's saying is false, and it's saying that the blue button is true, so that would mean the blue button's false. But if the blue button's false, that means what it says has to be true. See, and it gets all circular and crazy. It seems at first you see what it says, you go, okay, that makes sense. But it's a paradox. It can't work by virtue of its own logic. If you go online and you Google like paradox examples, get ready for some crazy brain-bending reading. It's going to be really interesting. But don't gloat about it. To gloat is to contemplate or to dwell on one's own success or another person's misfortune. It's not just thinking about it, it's doing so with a harmful or malignant pleasure. You're smug about it, you're like, yeah. It's kind of like bragging, right? To gloat is just stand there real overly proud of what you have that the other person does not. It's a really ugly behavior to have. A cacophony. It's a harsh and discordant mixture of sounds. Now, it looks a little bit like the word symphony, which we had before. A symphony is a collection of sounds that all work together and blend into something beautiful. A cacophony is the opposite. It's a bunch of sounds that clash and clang and are terrible against one another. Think of like if you accidentally empty like the pantry in the kitchen of all the pots and pans, they all clang and crash and it's a horrible sound. That's a cacophony. It's not an organized series of beautiful sounds. It's an ugly mixture of a bunch of crazy sounds. Now, if something is bona fide, this comes from Latin as well, if it's bona fide, it's genuine. It's real. Someone's feelings can be bona fide. That means they really mean what they say, right? You can have all kinds of things. If you collect autographs, you have to make sure that the autograph is bona fide. It was really signed by the famous person. It's not a fake, right? Now, next we have antithesis. The antithesis is a person or a thing that is the direct opposite of someone or something else. If you have a central idea, like in a paper, that's your thesis. The antithesis, see now we get antithesis, is the opposite idea that totally crosses out. Night is the antithesis of day, right? Black is the antithesis of white, so on and so forth. But you can go way bigger than that. You can look at politics, you can look at music, you can look at art, all kinds of things. What is its exact opposite that acts in contrast to it? That'll be its antithesis. Now we have ostentatious. Ooh, do I like this word. It's characterized by a vulgar or pretentious display. It's designed to impress or attract notice. Someone who is ostentatious, it's an adjective. Or someone who's behaving ostentatiously, that'd be the adverb of it, they're showing off. And they're showing off in a big way, right? Someone who, like, would be a good obnoxious one. If someone leaves the price tag attached to something they're wearing, and it's really expensive, they're like, oh, is that on there? You can tell this hat costs $500. Oh, excuse me. But they actually wanted you to see it, right? That is ostentatious behavior. Someone who wears a shirt that says like Armani across the front, right? That is ostentatious. Everyone has to know they have an Armani shirt. It's very ostentatious. Furtive. Furtive is also an adjective. Now, it describes a movement or a behavior of trying to avoid attention or notice. If you're trying to be kind of hidden in a funny way, however, there's an extra layer of meaning to it. This is because they are guilty of something. If someone acts furtively, they're trying to avoid notice because they did something bad, all right? Or they believe that being discovered would lead to trouble. They're being secretive. They're really kind of, oh. Ask me, I'll demonstrate what this looks like. I'll do a furtive movement. I'll dart my eyes around and pretend no one can see me, right? It's that kind of thing. Maybe don't ask me to do this years from now when I don't know what the conversation is. All right, cosmopolitan. It's to be familiar with and at ease in many different countries and cultures. Someone who's truly cosmopolitan, that's tough to say, is comfortable kind of anywhere. They fit in. They understand how it works. They know the lay of the land. However, in contemporary society, when we say cosmopolitan, we almost exclusively use it to talk about fancy societies, all right? Dignified cultures. Think of like a fancy party where everyone's wearing gowns and tuxedos. Someone who does very well there is very cosmopolitan. In theory, we could use the word to talk about someone who would hang out at something not fancy else, and the opposite of it, right? They're still very cosmopolitan because they're at ease in another culture. But weirdly, we don't really tend to use it that way. All right, a tirade. Tirade, this is a noun. It's a long, angry speech of criticism or accusation. Someone is just on a rant. Not just a rant. They're not just saying that they're angry. They're really laying into something, right? They're saying why they're angry, what's angering them. Here's my whole list of reasons, and they're just laying into it. They are on a tirade, or they are delivering a tirade, all right? So, now we have the idiom of the week. In the heat of the moment. If you say or do something in the heat of the moment, you say it or do it without thinking because you're angry or excited. It's not something you would normally do, but in that moment, when you're running hot, right, your temperature's high because everything's going on, that's the heat of the moment. So as the example says here, while passionately discussing the value of the Oxford comma, Ms. Douglas got up, yelled, and fist pumped in the heat of the moment. Mr. Bowman does all kinds of embarrassing things. Have you seen him actually kiss a book? That has happened in the heat of the moment. I get very excited. Have I done a high kick when excited about something? Yes, those have happened. In the heat of the moment, I do crazy things because I get excited about English class. Clearly, Miss Douglas does as well. Well, that's it. Those are the words of the week. That's the idiom of the week. That's the academic word of the week. You got them all. You're ready to go. Thank you very much. Good luck. Study for your vocab quiz on Tuesday.